This is Great FM. Great FM.
Hi, folks. Welcome to Great FM, the official podcast series by Great HR. I'm Ahalya, your host for the series. Hi again. Now, in our episode on building a future-ready workplace, we actually talked a lot about the need for upskilling and reskilling. If you haven't already, make sure to check out that podcast. It was a really interesting conversation. But my point is this: if you look at it today, right, everything boils down to just one thing: learning and development. L&D have become like the choicest letters of the alphabet in the corporate world, and rightfully so. Companies who invest time, capital, and energy into valuable L&D strategies always get out ahead of the curve. People just like them better. In fact, a Harvard Business Review article from 2020 cited a Work Institute report saying that the report, and I quote, predicted that 1 in 4 workers would leave their jobs in 2018, and nearly 1/3 of that turnover was attributed to unsupported management and a lack of development opportunities. So there you go. The latter half is what we're going to be focusing on today. Good or bad L&D strategy can even have a detrimental impact on your organization's ability to attract and retain good talent. How can an organization enable impactful and effective L&D strategy to positively attract and retain talent? And giving us the lowdown today is Rajiv Naithani, CVP and Chief People Officer, Infogain. Hi, Rajiv. Welcome.
Hey, hi, Ahalya. Very happy to be here with you in this podcast.
Lovely to have you here. Very excited to hear your perspectives, Rajiv, on this very interesting topic, actually, not a link that many people would see very easily. So let's just start with that. Tell us about that link between good L&D strategies and higher talent retention rates. Why are they so closely tied together?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting question. And let's begin with the most fundamental aspects of retention. As you just gave a reference of Work Institute report, where you mentioned 1/3 of the turnover was attributable to unsupportive management and a lack of opportunity for career growth. Coming from the technology industry, I believe that the top 3 reasons for greater employee turnover in the present market are: 1, inequitable compensation; 2 is career growth opportunities; and 3rd is stagnant roles. The final 2 are directly related to L&D initiatives, and also at the same time, managerial effectiveness and culture aspects. Now, let's examine how L&D strategies can contribute to increase talent retention rates in any organization. In the past few years, particularly since pandemic, continuous learning has emerged as a key organizational culture enabler. Identification of training needs has become outmoded. It has become obsolete completely. As both individuals and businesses, they require continuous learning opportunities. Employees have become considerably much more receptive to the constant reskilling and upskilling. This is mostly due to the disruption which has got evolved from a technology-based skill requirement standpoint. The definition of relevance has altered. People have increasingly started to recognize that what got them here won't get them there. And as a result, they are more open to learning. And at the same time, from organization's perspective, where you can't keep going out and hiring every time, matching the 100% skill match, right? It's a monumental task for any organization. At the same time, they have this self-serving interest to provide employees with a culture of continuous learning, in which the necessary investments are made in learning interventions and career opportunities. Now, if you look at these 2 perspectives and provide a continuous learning opportunities, and also at the same time clearly articulate a view to the career path to employees, then what would become important from initiatives of L&D perspective would be: 1, individual development plan-based learning interventions; opportunities for focus certifications; conscious efforts by the organizations for job rotations, which is a big cultural issue in Indian mindset. Managers, they don't let go of the people. They believe that the people are their own jagir, as we call it in Hindi, their own property. And pull-based learning offerings would become crucial strategies for retaining talent, in my view. So that's the summary.
That's really interesting, actually, Rajiv, that you bring up this point of it almost being necessary to the organization itself. That's always a good motivator to do something and put something in place. And speaking of, you did touch upon this, the entire idea of L&D and its link to culture, right? In my opinion, I don't think it can possibly be a one size fits all thing, just because every organization has different priorities, different aims, and all of the L&D initiatives have to fit those aims and priorities, right? So how can you go about tackling this task of creating the right L&D strategies for talent retention in the context of your organization?
Yeah, so Ahalya, this is very accurate, first of all. And, let me give you a conceptual perspective first,
Okay.
and then we'll find the story together. So there's a 70-20-10 rule of learning.
Right.
70% of learning occurs on the job, which is mostly highly personalized and skill-based, right? If I'm doing something on the job, I'm learning basis what I'm doing, right? And I'm gaining skills and developing myself, etc. on that. 20% of the learning is very contextual to the organization's leadership, culture, cross-functional collaboration, because we get to work with different people, the business context. And since it is driven by collaborating with others and observing how different employees adopt different behaviors, techniques, tools while executing these tasks, become very important learning for any individual. So this 20% of the learning comes through these areas. This has significant impact on how individuals would shape their career by adopting some of these styles, behaviors, and skills. Right. Now, the remaining 10% of the learning is extremely personal in my view.
Okay.
Because what happens is, if I am looking for my additional 10% learning, I would actually dedicate my time, my effort, and even often money to pursue it. For example, as I'm talking to you, I'm pursuing my MSc in People and Organization Development, right. And I'm stretching myself, going beyond, investing my time, my efforts, and my money in it. Now, that has significant impact on the overall learning context. But let's look at it from the standpoint of the organization. I think what the organization should do is they must continually give individuals with the continuous learning interventions which can assist people with the jobs, and also equip them with the key skills for collaborating with others, and most importantly, provide individuals with the opportunity to pursue learning programs of their choice and assist them in tying these programs to their career advancement and progression, right? It should not happen that you're saying on one side you are open to do certification, but then there's no application of it. There's no lateralship which is allowed. So what is the use of that, right? Similarly, when we discuss supporting learning interventions on the job, there may be a number of problems involved with establishing programs based on the individual skills, talents, role, and maybe company context as a whole. So occasionally, this was not an easy task when you say customized learning thing, right? It has a lot of variability to it.
Right.
However, if you utilize a technology platform and define a well-articulated learning map based on individual's development plan, it can still give you optimal solution in my view. And, in addition, as I was saying, companies' assistance for people's career transitions and rotations is very crucial in this. In the absence of these, learning development activities by themselves would not suffice. So back to you, Alia.
Okay, I like that. So please let me know if I've got this right. That, L&D strategies, the specifics are obviously going to differ, but the priority of what needs to happen with those strategies can be standardized.
So I would actually say the strategy and how do you implement them? Both are critical. Both are very important. Your strategy today has to be delivering a continuous learning culture in the organization, which is not reactive or transactional based, which we always did through T&I process, etc. And then at the same time, how do you make it happen so that there's a real impact on the ground? I, as a user, if I'm only having one learning program, it could be a feel-good factor. But what about the application of it? The opportunities to leverage these learning from my rotations, career growth, even lateral movement perspective. Are you creating that culture ecosystem in the organization or not? So that's where I look at it from.
Yeah. No, and that priority can definitely be applied across organizations, regardless of what your services or your offerings are, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, when it comes to all of these new age sort of philosophies or movements, a lot of people remain unconvinced, Rajiv. So what would you say are the downsides of not investing into L&D in the context of talent retention? How badly can bad L&D affect employees, actually?
So first of all, I must confess that I resonate with your initial statement.
Right.
It is a fact that many organizations pay little attention to L&D priorities.
Okay.
And what they really look at is I have a position, I need a near matching skill, and I should hire that person from outside. And they don't care beyond that. Moreover, when there is a severe economic situation or circumstances, L&D is the first function which is targeted for budget cuts. But at the
Right.
same time, there are many progressive organizations which will take L&D seriously. And if you do not establish a culture of learning in your organization, you may encounter significant difficulties in speeding the skill requirements. See what is happening. I come from technology industry, as I said, right?
Yeah.
In last 2.5 years, ever since we hit the pandemic, things have changed significantly. This has been a significant amount of skill gap. You don't have talent available. So what if you do not have a robust L&D engine in a factory model base? How do you build capabilities in-house? So capability creation is a crucial feature of modern economy.
Yeah.
Beginning with the knowledge of what your go-to-market strategy is, you should have an accurate evaluation of your internal capabilities to deliver the necessary business imperatives. And if we integrate L&D at that point with the go-to-market strategy and ensure that we have a factory model and a pull-based focus, which means the culture is enabling the learning need, where people are looking forward to learning need. So when you have that on continuous learning, the organization will begin to scale faster and better than its competitors. Bottom line is, if you do not invest in the education and learning of your employees, someone else will, and you will lose your company's top performers to somebody else. That's the reality.
Nice. Okay, I like that because again, it puts the ball in their court. It is of interest to you as an organization to invest in L&D, and it's something that you need to do if you don't want to make losses as well.
Of course.
This is Great FM.
And, speaking of, maybe let's look at the positives now. Is there an innovative L&D initiative in the talent retention space that you've come across in recent times, something that, you thought was really remarkable and a move in the right direction?
Yeah, so, there are low-hanging initiatives and then there are systematic cultural change driven initiatives. And I keep seeing a lot of small, low-hanging examples and stories from different organizations. And I feel them to be very exciting and also meaningful.
Right.
One small example could be, if you create a community of people who come together on a particular topic or particular stream or technology, and then they actually have a regular hurdle helping each other, etc., could be a good peer level learning intervention in any organization, right? But many companies may be doing it. We do it. But let me talk about two examples which I found to be very, very systematic, transformational from a learning standpoint. In one of my previous organizations, the learning route was explicitly customized to the individual's role. It was accomplished to the extent that individuals had a clear understanding of the existing skill gap and the learning opportunities available in the organization to them, which could help them bridge the gap, right? So it was so well knitted that on the click of a button, you can understand all of it. You can pursue interventions which are also made available. And then you have your own self-paced speed at which you want to go about it. There's no compulsion on this to you. And over a period of time, you're actually completing your learning journey and also bridging those gaps. That was one. The second story is something which I witnessed in one of our private equity firm's portfolio companies.
Okay.
They have integrated learning around role-based, domain-based, and organization culture-based interventions. And that has been done in such a manner that any new person who joins that organization, they go through the rigorous learning to adopt the necessary tools, skills, and behaviors to produce a consistent productivity and behaviors from a culture standpoint. They take it very seriously and devote the initial few weeks or months rather to individuals' complete enrollment into this, so that it's like you're ensuring that it's a certification journey where everyone has the same domain, function, process, and culture expertise, which is very contextual to the business and culture need of that organization. And I believe they do it magnificent. They do a magnificent job in that context.
Nice. Yeah, no, that's really, really cool. Again, a really good way to sort of start small and keep expanding. It's also really important for these initiatives to be sustainable, right? In order to make those systemic cultural changes that you were talking about before. And I think that brings me now to HR's role in this entire establishment of new culture, right? Culture priorities are always very difficult to just accomplish. It's not like a task on your to-do list. You can't just, flip a switch and, we've got new culture in the organization. So how does HR go about facilitating this culture change over the years? But, how does it orient itself to this priority?
I think it's a very deep and very intense question which you are asking.
Oops.
HR And I'll tell you, so far we were talking about as a L&D function, what function can drive by collaborating with everybody else. But at the same time, I also talked about building and developing a learning culture. Now, without the help of a custodian who owns a culture, that journey is also not possible. It's like this, people redo what gets reinforced, which means a learning culture should be designed to enable and promote learning behaviors, right? We have been talking about, right? Your question also comes with that context. So people learn what they see others doing. That's where the behavioral learning happens, right? If suppose I'm going with my manager and having a customer call, which is very difficult conversation. Now, how tactfully my manager is dealing with that conversation with the irate customer or even considerate customer will actually enable a learning in me with respect to those behaviors which have been exhibited, right? So now, how do you bring consistency in those behaviors would be very important and crucial aspect for any organization. And that's where the custodian role of HR would be very important. Now, there are various aspects of conducive environment, leading by example, right enforcement, opportunities, rewarding, engaging your middle management, setting a measurement of targets. These are all key to build a healthy learning culture in any organization. And other thing, what could be done is make active learners as learning ambassadors. And as I said, people learn from others, right, through their actions. The moment, and most importantly, it has to be a pull-based learning approach, as I was talking about previously, right? The moment you go with push-based, then, and you actually set the target that, okay, certain hours of learning, which needs to be achieved, etc., you'll not achieve anything. So it has to be pull-based. So your organization ecosystem should be such that it encourages people to look at learning as their own initiative, their own accountability. Their career is their own accountability. Their growth is their own accountability. And then provide ecosystem to enable that and support that. I think that's where the culture will play a big role in making this happen.
Yeah. And also that's such a valuable point that you brought up, Rajiv, about having a custodian for that culture, someone who embodies that culture, someone that people can look up to is really important. Even if it's not just one person, maybe a group of people. Absolutely. And I think that brings me to my final question in our conversation today, Rajiv, which is how important is feedback in this entire mechanism for talent retention, for the sake of L&D, for the sake of growth and progress in one's organization? How important is it to have a feedback mechanism in place that can support these things?
On a lighter side, feedback is always looked at as with a negative connotation, right? Nobody likes to receive feedback, irrespective whether it has positive element to it or not. But however, meaningful and constructive feedback, in my view, is a strong method of letting people know how manager and organization appreciate what they are learning. Right? I think if you are able to develop a learning journey which has element of self-learning, facilitation-led learning, reflection to learnings, because at the end, when you have learned something, whether it was through self-learning or through facilitation, there's a reflection element which is very essential. That's where you actually really internalize the learning from your own individuality perspective, and then application of that learning, and then assessment of the change. If you follow all this, trust me, you don't need any other feedback mechanism. Because what you have done is you have actually created a systematic way of institutionalizing the learning in any organization context. And it works in autopilot mode. This is all about culture, by the way. Besides, learning strategies must need to be aligned to the go-to-market strategies and the leadership and business context of the company. It should not be seen as a support function which is completely isolated and is catering to the needs raised by line manager as part of training needs identification process. So I think if you get into that space, I believe, one, you don't need feedback mechanism. You will rather make it part of your deep ingredient, part of the culture aspect, which is deep rooted with it. I think that's how I look at it.
Yeah, no, that's, again, a good way of looking at it, because if we create an environment that is robust enough, then, of course, feedback will be a good part of it very naturally, rather than having to be a separate mechanism that is put into that context.
And just to one note, which, I just thought about in addition
Right.
to what I just said, possibly is it's important to actually take feedback, right? So,
Yeah.
for example, whether you have a dialogic conversations with the key stakeholders, or you have support function surveys through which you're collecting pulse of your people, or
Mhm.
you're having different channels through which you're, getting to listen what they are saying, both all kind of stakeholders, whether it's line manager, employees on the ground, or leaders, all that is also very important. So how do you actually bring a structure and collect
Mhm.
that is also equally important, right? You may still do everything else good from a culture standpoint, but your evolution journey will still require this element of feedback. So this is an important addition I would still make to the earlier sharing.
Okay, lovely. Well, thank you so very much, Rajiv, for joining us today. It's truly been an insightful conversation, a very, very insightful edition of Great FM with you. Thanks so much for bringing your perspectives
Thank
to the
you.
table.
I'm so glad that you invited me and I could participate in this conversation. Short and crisp, but I enjoyed it. Thank you, Alia.
Thank you. And everyone, stay tuned. This is Mia Halia signing off on this edition of Great FM. But as usual, we'll bring you more interesting conversations from the world of HR in audio. So catch you very soon.
This is Great FM.